So welcome to a special Alberta election episode of Elected. Elected is a podcast for women and our active accomplices in and around politics. I'm your host, Sarah Elder-Chamanara, and today my guest is Sarah Biggs. Hi, Sarah.
Hi, how are you?
It's two Sarahs.
Two Sarahs.
Before we get started, in the spirit of reconciliation, it's important for me to share my personal commitment to learning the history of colonialism and the ongoing systemic violence and oppression against Indigenous people. The land where we live, work, and record from is traditional territories of the Blackfoot Confederacy, the Siksika, Kainai, the Kainai, the Tsuut'ina, Stoney Nakoda Nations, Métis Nation Region 3, and all people who make their homes in the Treaty 7 region of Southern Alberta. So, this podcast is obviously a little bit different because we're in the midst of an election here in Alberta.
Yes.
We have some things that we want to chat about, right, Sam?
There's a lot going on right now.
Yeah. So we want to talk about first week thoughts because we're now in week 2 of the campaign.
Yes.
Smith being MIA, everything Calgary, because that's where everything seems to be happening. Arena polling that came out. The poppy vaccine video from 2021 that Smith was in that's caused an uproar this week, as well as the fires and Take Back Alberta.
It's a loaded slate.
So what were your impressions of the first week?
It was fine. I was not overly impressed by both sides. There was some good tidbits of policies. But it's just attack.
Mm-hmm.
And we are not really seeing any substantial policy discussions. Like, this is what election is about. An election is about how your life will be better under a certain government. Saying that you're going to save healthcare, saying that you're going to be reducing taxes is not enough. You need to come up with a concrete plan. Like, when we're seeing big announcements, then, for example, I'm not bashing any parties right now, but for an example, the NDP is planning on opening those family health centers and all that. But where are the doctors? Do we have enough doctors to cover? Is that going to take from the hospital system? The nurses are fleeing the province right now because they're just burnt out. And also it brings another problem, which is the affordability of post-secondary. They are not addressing the elephant in the room. And it's very frustrating to see the parties not having more depth into policy right now. And they're just trying to get some sound bites and get people to say, yay, somebody's going to save healthcare.
I don't think we can have depth right now where we're at because of the news cycle and it's like that we're in kind of like a headline state of not only the campaign, but like maybe the world generally, where people just want, the top line.
Yeah.
And then the details are an extreme afterthought.
Give me some numbers. I just want to know how much it's going to cost.
I don't think that,
I'm not the regular voter, though. That's the thing.
So but also, I think for me, the first week was anticlimactic because, I didn't is there ever actually going to be a moment when either of the campaigns has like an official campaign platform rollout?
No, I don't think so.
Announced pre-campaign because we were in this endless pre-campaign, pre-writ period because there was a fixed election date for the first time. So everyone did all of their unloading of announcements, and now it's in the re-announcement state. And I haven't made my way entirely through it, but the podcast with Kathleen Petty from West of Center last week had Erica Brudy's and Cheryl Oates on it, kind of talking about this. And I thought it was really interesting. And I feel like both parties have created this atmosphere of kind of
it's a rinse and repeat.
Yeah.
It's a rinse and repeat situation. So they made their big announcement. They made their point. Now, the strategy seems to be the attack side, which has been, holy moly, I've rarely seen this in Canadian politics. Like, this is next level right now.
I don't agree in that. I think that we have, coming from BC, I have seen this kind of politics before, but I feel, and maybe I think this is with my BC lens on it, is that it's too soon. Like the NDP's Weather Vane ad, which, by the way, is an exact replica of an attack ad released by the BC Liberals against the NDP when Adrian Dix was leader. And it turns out that that was a copy of an American attack. Anyways, that was not all of
BC politics is not my specialty.
But that was something that the BC Liberals dropped at the end of a campaign.
Yeah.
And I feel like it's happened too early here. It's gone too negative too fast on the part of the NDP in attacking the UCP. I think that they should have gauged what was going on more and let things play out and then done that.
Yeah. So there's a timing question for sure. Are they running out of cards too fast, or are they sitting on more material? But it's screenshots are forever, videos are forever. Individuals probably have something more somewhere, but I think that I don't like to start on a negative start. When I run campaigns, I really try to set the tone into what we want to do as policies, what kind of government are we going to be, and then if we need to attack, like last summer during the UCP leadership campaign, my candidate really came on against the Alberta Sovereignty Act, but that was September 8th, less than a month before the vote, not July 5th. Yeah. There's a concern that the NDP will be able to sustain those line of attacks.
19 days left of the campaign. Let's think about really long time.
It is almost 3 weeks, and in politics it could be a year.
And so and that goes into obviously the attacks last week, the negativity, but also Smith being missing in action for a lot of it, and that's because she is her own worst enemy, which we've seen play out even just over the last couple of days with that video from 2021 where she said that 75% of the population, in her estimation, that got vaccinated would also be followers of Adolf Hitler. And then she had to put out a statement and, has had to spend a lot of time
explaining more clarifications.
Danielle.
Yeah.
And that's why she was missing last week, and that's why they're going to probably lock her down again.
They are going to. I strongly believe that they will try to control the narrative as much as they can, and try to not support her, but really frame her comms in a way that they're going to try to do a lot of damage control in the next 3 weeks. They need to be able to control her narrative so they can be running their campaign. We're going to see even more, star candidates making announcements. We're going to see more involvement again this week.
Anyone who has a star candidate.
Sorry. Former cabinet members.
Okay, got it.
That's what I would say.
One of the most horrendous things about the fires that Alberta is experiencing is that this actually presents her, because she does have to go back into premier mode, is an opportunity to be a leader and in charge and demonstrate and have those photo ops of her in the command center, or meeting with people who have tragically been evacuated or displaced or even lost their homes. So in some ways politically it has a slight advantage, even her offering emergency assistance money to people who have been displaced.
Yesterday was good. It was a sound announcement. The amounts were reasonable. They will be making an impact. Right?
But we also learned that she had previously disclosed on the weekend to it being disclosed that there would be a public emergency. She kind of shared it as inside information at a campaign event with UCP members.
Breaking cabinet confidentiality.
Shared this online, and I'll say it again and again and again every day of the campaign. For me, it's a question of judgment, and she does not have the judgment necessary to be in this position. I feel like she acts against her own interests, and she's actually acting against the interests of Albertans. Because she cannot separate herself from. She makes an excellent party leader, She makes an excellent, she's hats off to her in her role as leader of the UCP. But in her role of premier, she cannot separate herself from being that party loyalist.
No.
And that is not okay.
No, it's not okay. And, do I think that she did fine this weekend? Yes, she did what she had to do. She decided to put the partisanship aside and, invite Notley, and they went to visit
For a meeting.
And then they went to the evacuee center in Edmonton. That was good. That showed that, we have a premier who wants to please anyone and who's a really, really keener. She's her own worst enemy because she's trying to please to everybody. She's trying to show that she can share things, and she's an oversharer. It's like, when you're having, I don't know, that lunch with some friends and, there's a new friend coming in the room and you really don't want to try to impress them. She is really trying to please everyone at this point.
And of him being, the stories of him being at Mar-a-Lago and, having lots of people around and then, and having conversations that were, that weren't appropriate. Given, that people might be in and around him trying to, just that, again, it's a sense of judgment. He lacks it to this day. She lacks it for me as well, obviously not to the same degree, but to me, it's shades of the same color.
Her entourage needs to be more cognizant and needs to understand more the impacts of her words.
Too. I think that's why the only moderating factor in Danielle Smith in any success that she has electorally in this election is because of the people around who have better judgment than she does.
Some of them do. Some of them are more enablers than a perfect staffing slate. But can I just talk on how interesting it was this weekend on the social media scene? So we had, so Saturday, Smith had an announcement, they had a meeting, then she went to her prime rib dinner. Well, it's, if the ice sculptures were paid for, I don't know. I don't know how to explain that one.
I mean, any political event and there's an ice sculpture. This was top tier.
That was top tier. That was spending. Probably the $4,300 donors in the writing that they were really trying to court.
Well, I hope so. When they're looking at the disclosures, specifically in that writing that they do, I mean, that's money.
It is money. Yeah. It is a lot of money, but so, and then we had Miss Notley doing an announcement saying, hey, I'm here for you. I'm ready to work with the premier. Went through the fires in Fort Mac, back in 2016. And then Sunday morning, they had their meeting. And then if you look at the two social media, Smith campaign posted pictures of Danielle Smith and Rachel Notley together at the Expo Center. And then on the NDP side, you see only Notley. You don't see the pictures that they have posted. I found it interesting because we're calling for collaboration. Everyone wants to work together. We'll show it until the very bitter end. Just, and I think that's why I'm saying with more depth is that just show it. Just show that you're together.
Something that I didn't like about the photos that I didn't see, and I didn't see everything, was that I think Notley was actually wearing an old jacket.
She was.
Her days in government.
Yeah.
And I did not like
that.
I didn't think that was appropriate because
she's not
the premier. She is not a member of government. She's in opposition. She's running as a challenger to unseat Danielle Smith. I didn't like that look. But that's very nitpicky and not something that maybe everyone was paying attention to.
No, because, we're, again, not
looking at it with a different lens.
We are.
But, yeah.
It's all about the optics.
It is about the optics, and the optics do really matter. And at this weird time, this weird campaign that we're in, I feel like even those little things.
Everything matters.
It's strange because things that maybe aren't as only because of the lack of details and, it's the weirdest stuff that will get picked up on right now. And I mean, is it even right that the focus really should be like, again, the fact that, this video from 2021 came up. And I mean, this is a general beef that I have with progressive versus conservative politics in general, is that on the progressive side, you end up nitpicking things that are actually relatively insignificant for the most part.
Yeah.
And then, because there are too many things of substance on the right leaning side of things that you end up equating them, and they're not the same at all. But that, I don't know how to prevent that.
This weekend was fascinating too when I was dome scrolling this weekend because what else to do? But what I found is that some individuals were like, that picture is fake because it says 2022. And then they started comparing hair length and hair color. It was fascinating to watch. Some people were saying that the picture was a fake, but you saw Ray Gilmore was there, who's director of executive office. So that is the nonpartisan bureaucrat arm of the premier's office. But some people went there, or some people on both sides were like, oh, the conservatives started the fires, or, oh, the NDP started the fires. And I was like, what is happening? Like both sides right now on certain situations, or
party structures need to in some way get out to the membership, which is just like down. It's just so inappropriate. And unfortunately, grown adults on the internet clearly, unfortunately, lack sound judgment to be throwing around things like that. It's just so inappropriate and so gross.
It's insanity. And, what was interesting too is that a lot of people were just doubling down on campaigning, or, a lot of the surrogates surrounding, the surrogates, social media account and all that just kept hammering. And to me, it's fine, but I would have liked to see a little bit more decorum while we're trying to deal with this. Yeah.
I don't know. I didn't see anything if there was the equivalent from the UCP.
There has been, like Todd Lowen, and there was another 2 or 3, I believe. Yeah. Yeah. It is offensive.
It makes me upset.
It has been very, very upsetting to see everything unfold on social media. Yeah.
So we've talked about first week thoughts, Smith missing in action, the fires a little bit. Obviously the first week of the campaign saw them both almost exclusively in Calgary, which for me is interesting because it ties into, I'm not sure if you saw it, but the polling that the CBC did on the arena and how greatly unpopular that decision is outside of Calgary, specifically in Edmonton, because their arena received no taxpayer funding. I want Calgary to have a new arena. I don't think that there should be I don't think that there should be a significant portion of that money coming from taxpayers, either at the municipal or the provincial level. Billionaires should be spending their billions themselves on an arena. So I'm first of all disappointed with the municipality, but this is a municipal campaign.
That's a discussion for another night.
But also that $330 million that's been announced for infrastructure that will contribute to things like roads and interchanges and whatever else that the province is going to be doing. Will that lose her support in areas where she needs votes, or does it even matter?
I don't think so.
Figured that into their decision making, and that makes sense.
I think so. So the problem I saw with the announcement is that Smith and Gondek were together, and Sharp, everybody. This announcement should have been 2 announcements. The city should have made the announcement by themselves and let themselves sink in, because we got the very, very short end of the stick on that deal as Calgary taxpayers. And, the premier should have done her own announcement saying we are investing infrastructure money. We are not, pouring it directly into, Calgary sports, pockets.
Yeah.
But I think that there was a lot of, and I'm not saying I agree with the deal. That's not what I'm saying, is that at a communication level, it should have been two announcements.
So from a communications, I think that, the city of Calgary should have said, obviously you want to get this announcement out the door in advance of election. That's not something that we're comfortable with given the optics of this. We're going to be holding off on announcing anything until after the election, because the timing of it was just so crazy. That could have set up Danielle Smith as premier and as the government to have made her own announcement and said, you know what, we acknowledge that, CSEC and the city of Calgary haven't, come to an agreement yet on anything around an arena, but this is what we're willing to put on the table, and then just left it at that with their piece, and then gone into the election. And then so Calgarians could have decided if that's what they were interested in potentially supporting the UCP. And then afterwards, obviously that would have opened up a lot of questions for the municipal government. But then we could have gone through the election without that announcement, and then let's see where everything falls.
Yeah.
And then having that piece, because I don't know. It left me frustrated with the municipality for having agreed.
I'm so disappointed into
action. I don't understand why they did that.
And what surprises me is that city council unanimously voted on that.
Yeah.
And everyone was on board to do the announcement. And then, some people like Jeremy Farkas spoke up, about concerns about the deal, and the behavior of some councillors accusing, people that were opposed to the deal or opposed to the city share were, accusing the people that were raising concerns about playing politics and trying to politicize something. But that's exactly what you did. You walked into this fully knowing that people would be raising concern. You just can't dismiss someone's concern.
I just think
they should have held us.
Cogs in a political ploy. And they had, I believe, in my personal opinion, they could have just said no.
It's a full political endorsement at that point. Yeah.
So that's so frustrating. I don't understand. I'd love for someone to explain to me why they went along with that. And I can understand. They'll say city council is, not partisan. There are no, blah, 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 blah.
Well, they crossed the line this time and they walked right into partisanship without even maybe taking that in consideration. They knew. Yeah.
And it's inexplicable to me. I don't understand it.
It's a mystery. We'll see what's going to happen after the election.
So the arena deal, funding being most Edmonton, which isn't surprising, but the UCP wasn't expecting to do well there anyway. So will it be a wash?
I was talking to some people within the UCP party, and they were like, "Yeah, we gave $1.2 billion to Edmonton, and then in the budget there was $900 million for Calgary, and that $300 million comes and top it off in infrastructure work."
Yeah,
and I was like, "Okay,
I guess. I mean, I also have 2 children.
Yeah.
I don't do. Does everything have to be a perfect 50-50 split? I think that the adults in the room will understand that depending on the project and what's happening, they don't need to get the exact same candy bar.
But I think that it shows how divided we are right now, even at municipal level. And it's like, I have a 2.5 years old and I have 11 years old. And it's like, well, she got this. Yeah, but you're 11.
I think and also big thing, rural Alberta is looking at both of this and probably being,
The
what the fuck are you all thinking? We
fuck
get absolutely
nothing. Yeah.
Fancy arenas. Like that to me is,
We're going to see what's going to happen because I know the NDP has an announcement today about hockey in Lethbridge. So that's going to be fascinating to watch. But it's all about timing. It's all about being considerate. It's all about mindfulness. And all of this went out the door a long time ago.
That aspect for me is really, because, living in Calgary, you forget, you don't, I'm very insulated. I have like a bubble that I live in Calgary. You don't often go outside of Calgary. But you don't need to drive very long to realize that this is a rural province and that the rural economy is very different and that the issues of rural Albertans are very different. And that isn't to say that they necessarily align only with the UCP, but, they're talk about, policing isn't the same. Yeah. Right. Any issue, take it outside of a large urban center in Alberta and you have a different lens on it and different factors. And we forget about that.
Well, see, my husband's grandfather built a cabin in Pigeon Lake back in 1950s. And we still have that cabin to this day. So in the summer, we are mainly in rural. So one summer, Grandpa was at the farm because there's a farm too. He's 96. He fell, hit his head. The closest hospital is in Wetaskiwin. That's a 40 minutes to 50-minute drive by ambulance. It takes about an hour to get there when you're, not driving at 170. Yeah. But even the services, the local doctors and the local pharmacy, and there's a lot you cannot, and that makes me sad. Because when you go into rural areas and you spend a few weeks, I don't like to see that the standard of living isn't the same because it should be. Those individuals, rural people are the heart. They deserve
education than anyone.
Exactly. And very often, we're seeing right now with the education cuts and all the issues we're having in education right now, very often we forget that the local school is the heartbeat of the community. And we have more and more individuals and families leaving those rural communities to go into more of a suburban or urban area to get more services and get better access to services for their kids and activities and everything in between. And very often those schools are closing. What does that mean for the community? You don't have, bingo nights at the school anymore, community fundraisers, and the kids do not go to school in their own municipality.
Effect to that. So, kids are moving out of rural areas. That means families are leaving.
Yeah.
That means that there are potentially less family farms. That means there are less businesses.
Yeah.
That means that it's harder for anyone who's left in that community to run a business to survive. It means that attracting new people, doctors, anyone who is still needed in the community, even harder because when they go there to visit and see what it's like, they're going to be like, yeah, there's no way I'm moving my family here.
Yeah.
But these are things that I don't think that anyone is actually even talking about, and I wish they were.
There's a lot of conversations to be had that, unfortunately, because of everything that's been happening, I feel like our attention. It's like when you have a kid, you're trying to focus on something like, oh look, mommy, a squirrel. Yeah. We are always distracted from the important conversations that we need to have in the province, and it's sad. It makes me upset because, my husband's family is from rural. Grandpa was an engineer for the government, but then after that, as a retirement project, decided to, run a farm in 1970. But, I'm not a farmer. I don't have any farming capabilities. Grandpa passed 3 years ago. So what do we do? How do we deal with it? Like, we need to have succession planning because our food supply is at play. one of our biggest economic drivers at play. Our exports are at play. So we really, really, really need to have those conversations because it's social, it's economical, and it's food security at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And a lot of people who, are feeling like they're being ignored, their issues are being addressed. And in some ways, I think that makes them susceptible to, politicians who suddenly appear out of nowhere and make promises that they can't fulfill.
Yeah.
And rural Albertans, anyone in a community deserves better. And I don't think that they're getting the attention that they need.
On both sides. Yeah.
Okay. So, and then we've already kind of touched on the poppy vaccine video. But Sarah, when you saw that video, what thoughts came to your mind?
My mother's family immigrated from France in 1946, and my mother's adopted, but my biological mother, grandmother, they are Jewish. And they left France after the war. They were lucky enough to survive. It's rare that I don't have words for things. But that one, I live in a Jewish community. My riding is Calgary, Glenmore. A lot of, Jewish communities. There's 2 synagogues in the riding. There's the GCCF, there's everything. And it makes me sad because it's an example of how damaging. So COVID has been damaging to everyone. And it has, the restrictions. And yes, we needed restrictions. I was the first one to shut my door and be like, I'm pregnant. I'm going to get out just to go to the hospital. I understand it created a lot of hardships because everybody went through hardships during COVID. But what is sad is that some politicians or some people of influence, some podcasters out there, some, people that has a wide audience took that opportunity to peddle anti-Semitic talking points, racism, anti-science talking points and everything in between. It makes me sad, and it shows how vulnerable we can be. Because yes, the premier always has had controversial opinions, right? When she was at 770, sometimes she was bringing, topics that would make you uncomfortable, would make you think a little bit, but then it's like, but that was her job, hearing and thinking, be like, that's crazy. It's, we can't go with that. But, to an extent, it's sad and makes me scared for the future. I'm really worried about the future. The other day I got anti-vaxxer propaganda at my door, and I went at my neighbors to look at my house, like almost the same as you got. Like, it needs to stop. Do
you think that this is going to, is this going to dominate the second, we're already in the
no.
Do you think this lasts in the news cycle?
Well, as long as the media wants it to be in the news cycle, that's number one. But what we have seen since January is that for some sort of reason, we have a premier that is made out of Teflon. Everything just tends to go away.
Well, because her defense are, to some extent valid in that, she can say, I wasn't running for this position.
Yeah.
I was just having conversations. It was in my role as a radio host, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean that she didn't say it.
No.
And the statement that she put out with this kind of blanket apology was kind of reminiscent of the other UCP candidate who, what was it, last week or before the what's
her name? Chelsea Petrovich in Livingston.
said, I basically apologize for anything I've ever said in my.
Yeah, it's a, hey, FYI, if you find something that I fucked up,
Yeah.
here's my pre-written, you know,
Statement.
yeah,
Thing to unpack.
it's fascinating.
But, you know, will this actually, you know, unfortunately, are people outside of the media and people on social media actually talking about this? I'm not sure.
No, we need to remember that maybe 4 or 5% of the electorate are on Twitter. Like, we keep having those heated arguments on Twitter. They keep doing those attacks. They keep doing those statements. There's a lot of boo-boos that happens on social media, but Twitter is not real life.
Yeah.
And yeah, the CBC, well, right now there's a whole bunch of conservatives that don't listen to the CBC for a reason, you know, because they decided it was not reliable, or, you know, who knows. But I don't think so. You know, a lot of Jewish organizations were like, please refer to our 2021 statement about this. We knew about it then, but we need to remember that a lot of, you know, those usually the Jewish community tends to vote conservative. Are they going to be willing to give it a pass and use it as a? So here's the thing. I could see them trying to, you know, try to educate.
Yeah, I mean,
Smith.
Your statement saying, like, basically a friend of the Jewish people, whatever it was, how she put it.
Yeah.
I don't think that friends of the Jewish community equate themselves with people who were murdered in gas chambers.
No. That's not what I'm saying.
No. I'm
Oh, yeah.
saying that to me, like, if that to me is so incredibly offensive.
It is.
It's not what friends in any community do, is align yourself with the most victimized members of it. But again, this is also the premier who, right after, like, literally, what was it, day 1 or day 2, said that the unvaccinated
were the most persecuted.
So, like, there's a repetition, like, there's a pattern here.
Yeah.
And if you're not willing to see the pattern, or to constantly say, you know, this was, you know, like, she didn't mean it, this was like a one-off. How many times does she get a free pass?
I don't know. She has 150 lives.
I mean, but that's ultimately up to people. That's up to us. Like,
yeah, it is
also, I mean, up to her supporters, who will keep giving her this free pass. Specifically, our last topic is Take Back Alberta. They obviously completely agree with her on this. They do feel that they are the most persecuted. They do feel that they're the most under threat, that they're, you know, the most marginalized group, which is, again, not at all accurate.
No, have we lost as an electorate? Have we become numb to everything that's happening? Because we have seen so much going on in the United States, and we kind of got used to it.
Yeah.
Are we just becoming used to those kind of statements, and we're saying, well, you know, it's Premier Smith, you know, am I surprised at this point? No.
Well, no, it's certain people, right?
Yeah.
And they set themselves, like, to their credit. They've done position themselves perfectly so that, like, nothing sticks.
Yep. Nothing sticks. Nothing.
I mean, that's not true. It does stick for, you know, for the roughly half of the population who I think can, you know, rightly attribute these things and see the pattern.
Yeah.
But then there's another group of people who have been cultivated, and to some degree,
into agreeing and
who will just say, who will just make excuse after excuse and let this, you know, all of these things just go. And by saying, you know, like, that's just, you know, who she is or he is, and, you know, that was their previous job, and, you know, that
apologists.
Like,
I don't know. It's, you know, we need to be upset. We need to demand better. But the discourse is so intense in the province right now that I do not know, like, people, it's so hard to explain though. It's people are focusing on themselves right now and how they will go through the next 10 years. And I feel like all of this and I'm concerned that all of this has just become noise.
Well, and I think that goes back to started talking, the lack of detail, lack of depth that we're seeing in the campaign. To me, this is like, it makes sense because by design, this is the world we live in now. These are the kind of campaigns that are being
political junk food. I call it political junk food. Quick bikes, quick policy. Oh yeah, okay, they're gonna be opening in a hospital there. Okay, cool. Good. She gets my vote. It's quick sound bites because we have such a short attention span.
Yeah, I honestly think it's to the detriment. Like, the people who be the ultimate losers in this are us. Like, it's just all Albertans. And I've already spent a lot of time in my own head thinking about what the province is going to be like post-election, because no matter who wins, there will still be division and separation within, people with different, whoever team wins and whoever's team
it's not gonna get any better.
And I think that we'll do a better job at, governing obviously for everyone and maybe pulling, us together as a province, hopefully. I don't think that Smith has that ability or is interested in doing that. Because as we've seen in the last 7+ months of her tenure, I don't think she governs for everyone. She governs for, people that she's ideologically aligned with. So, what are we left with post-election? Is this like, do we just accept that this is the new normal? Or, because I'm hearing from people, I hear directly from people who said that they have, exit plans to get out of Alberta if the UCP win again, that they, don't feel like they can live here anymore. And as much as I can understand that, I also don't understand it because, like some of us, for example, myself, I don't have an exit plan. My family doesn't have an exit plan. We're not going anywhere. So I'm just not willing to accept that this is the new normal. And
having the feeling that people are giving up.
Well, but I mean, people obviously deserve to make whatever choices.
100%. 100%.
But for them to feel like that there's no other option and that they can't live here. I don't know. I just like, what does this say about who we are or what we're going to be, or, Canada, Alberta's place within Confederation? Like, do we just, everyone gets in their wagons and heads off, and then, it's just a matter of days, months, or years until, there's actually a referendum on separation? Like, I don't know how this plays out.
Personally, I don't think we're going to be heading towards separation on that. They diluted the Alberta Sovereignty Act with the United Canada. It's a big wet paper tiger, right? Yeah. I was one of the vocal ones when the bill came out. I was, in the legislature when the bill was tabled. I read it right away and I was like, what the fuck is this? But they diluted it to a point where it's a big, fat, wet paper tiger. No, you don't. Like, we're not hearing about R-Star anymore. Yeah. Like, there's a lot of or the pension plan,
and that's all by design. That is because it's not because the UCP and Danielle Smith don't have thoughts and solid thoughts on these ideas. It's that they're so controversial and they understand that it is unpalatable
they are able to read the room.
That they're off on, having these conversations. So they've just tabled them until after the election. In my opinion, for them to pop up again, and then they can say that they're focused on, things that they've talked about in their platform or policy announcements.
Yeah.
But it's going to be a great big surprise after.
Who knows what they have in store? I was told that, the pension would be going to referendum if anything would have to happen on it. But I just do not know who and what to believe anymore. It's extremely difficult to make rational decisions and informed decisions. Even like me, I'm sitting here. It's not a hidden fact. I tend to be a little bit more on the progressive / conservative side than the very left. And I'm just sitting here and I'm looking at everything and I'm just shaking my head. And I feel like there's a lot of people like me that are just, I don't even know who I'm going to vote for. Yet.
Well, and so, I mean, maybe this is a good way to like wrap it up and then we can continue this conversation meet again in a week or so.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to be a first-time NDP voter in this election. And it's because I think that ultimately, I mean, there are a lot of reasons why.
Yeah.
The list is long, but ultimately, it's a question of, for me, the ballot box question is a question of judgment, and who has the best judgment to lead Alberta, and I do believe that's Rachel Notley in this election race, because it is incredibly, but also incredibly offensive to me that, the references to being, that I'm
a follower of
Hitler, for example, for being vaccinated. There's just, and that it's not the first time that something has been that, there's, again, it's a lack of judgment. And I don't, my explanation or my ask of anyone who's feeling undecided about this is that I actually, what seems like a hard choice, I actually don't think is a hard choice. Mm-hmm. We've made it a hard choice in our minds by thinking it's the NDP. And I say this as someone who came from BC, who's lived here for 10 years. I haven't always lived I lived for a long time in a riding where I did vote for the Alberta Party candidate because it was the leader, Greg Clark. Mm-hmm. And it's not a hard decision. I don't think when you look at all of the aspects of it, so we just need to talk ourselves through this, because that is where I think the majority of reasonable people who understand that these things are not normal, they're not acceptable, they're not okay. And that the path that we would go down for the next 4 years is not where we actually want to go.
Yeah, but I think for me right now is that I'm trying to be Switzerland. I'm not involved on any campaign whatsoever.
Yeah, but you're still a voter.
I'm still a voter, but publicly, I'm trying to explain both sides. Yeah. I'm trying to not be, going off after Notley or going off after Smith and
Switzerland and say, you know what, given everything that's going on, that's how I'm going to be voting.
Yeah.
I mean, that's where I find myself right now.
But there's also, some of my work requires me to be Switzerland right now because, I'm lobbying, there's always like big files going on and all that. You need to be mindful. And that's not an excuse. I'm just like talking, about my situation right now. But, I know what would be best. I know what would be, the rational choice. I know. But, for people like me right now, and, I really wish I had, well, I guess I do have it, but I really wish I had the liberties that, I'm under contract with a few media and, I'm under contract with a few people, some nonpartisan organizations and all that. And it's forced me to try to remain as neutral as possible. And then I'm providing analysis on both sides and I'm just like,
I'm still critiques of the NDP and the campaign. The same, obviously, heavily more on the against Danielle Smith and the UCP.
Goes both ways.
But I can recognize things that they both do well.
Oh, 100%.
You can still provide analysis and commentary. I think that's fair and balanced.
Yeah.
That not everyone can do that, obviously.
It's a fine balance, and it's a new thing also, right? It's the first election I've been setting out in 20 years. I don't know. Like forever. And I don't know. I just hope that people will take the time to go past the noise and really look into which party will bring the best deal to Albertans and where
But also, like, I don't think that people can just look at it in terms of economics.
No.
But that being said, also on the economics, traditionally people have said, that the NDP are a party of spending and, all of the.
Well, both sides have been making it rain.
Well, and that's the thing. They've been making it rain, and it's because, it hasn't been because of any genius on the part of anyone. It's been because of oil and gas, right? And so, they're, dollar for dollar. And what I've read and understood is that they're actually, not that far apart from each other. So for me, it's not a question of actually economics. It's a question of decency, of morals, of where do I place my values in this proposition. And again, my ballot box question is, who has the best judgment? And I've answered that question, and everyone else will get a chance to answer that too on May 29th.
Yeah, it's going to be fascinating to watch, and I'm so looking forward to the debate.
Which, by the way, that's a good reminder. So on May 18th, I just announced yesterday that there's going to be a leaders debate on global. Yesterday I announced that there will be a debate watching party here at the store, starting at 5:30. You can get tickets. It's free to attend. And so I'd encourage anyone, obviously, who's interested in that, and maybe, surrounding yourself with some people who want to have a more thoughtful conversation post and during debate around, what is offered to us. So free tickets are available to that, and we'll see what happens.
We shall see what happens.
So we're going to check in about a week.
Yep.
To see
next week.
Yeah.
Where we're at. And I'm hoping that the fire situation will not get worse, because we're expecting another heat dome.
Yes.
The north has not been getting enough water. And really, if some people, if they need help to amplify some fundraisers, or, if we can help in any ways, find get a hold, and, we can help amplifying.
Yeah. But also, if you are, on any social media space, please just use better judgment in terms of what you're saying around this. Like, pull back from those really dark, blaming of this is, there are people responsible for the fires. It's neither a political party, and we just need to remember that. And it just makes everyone involved look really bad.
It does.
Okay. Well, we'll talk next week.
We'll see you next week. Okay.